First off, Happy New Year. By the time you're seeing this, it will be 2026, January 1st, and I'm gonna just speak in probably a point of view that it is 2026 already. By the time you're seeing this, it will be 2026 though. So happy pre-New Year. Obviously, I'm saying pre-New Year because the new year really starts when the spring equinox begins. I have learned about that, and I think that's more of a new year. The spring equinox is when things begin to bloom again, and having a new year, January 1st, when it's cold outside, nothing's blooming, nothing's changing. I don't, you could celebrate the new year, but is it really a new year? Are things changing? I don't think so. So we'll say pre-New Year and then the actual New Year. But just going into this year, everybody believes New Year begins, change. Change is going to be the main thing. So one thing that I wanted to change is doing this. I've struggled a long time with deciding what I want to do. Not necessarily just in college, but just in life, like playing a game, playing GTA, for example. I'll always buy a car, drive the car for 4 days. I'm done with this car. Let me try and get another one, sell the car. Not knowing financially, obviously, on GTA, like I'm wasting more money just not driving this car and then buying a new one. So sitting with change and trying to embrace that a lot more. This has been something I've been trying to do for the past 4 years, honestly. And I would say the change that I've went through is drastic. Like even my parents tell me time and time again, like the person you were freshman year to now, like saying that in junior year, you're not the same. So looking at it and seeing my freshman year to graduate, the change was necessary. So going into this 2026 and this new chapter of my life of being a college graduate, I have to embrace a lot of change. So with this being said, I'm gonna try and do one of these every day. Every day, I'm gonna shoot for at least 200. That'll give me 165 days of no content. Sometimes I believe you should step away, and especially for me, I believe sometimes you do gotta go to the top of the mountain or go into the forest, go into the wilderness to really deepen whatever you need to and deepen your understanding of where you're at. Because if you're out in the light every time, you can't really grow. A lot of the growth happens behind closed doors. A lot of growth happens beneath the soil. So I believe that is going to be one major thing. One thing I'm going to try to uphold myself to is posting 100 times or 200 times. Recording videos, finding what I'm going to talk about each day. And then that's going to lead me into making those clips for other sites, shorts, TikToks, and things like that. So holding me accountable and, giving me something to try. Postgrad is all about trying to, find yourself. Is it a possibility that I found myself in what I'm supposed to do? Maybe. But if I continue to just try many things and not really set my sights on one thing, I may never know what I'm meant to do. I understand change is necessary. You look at evolution. Animals evolve all the time. It's probably animals evolving right in front of our eyes. Obviously, we won't know until scientists really confirm it. But you look at birds and things of that nature. A lot of birds don't have flight because they don't need it. Like penguins cannot fly. But do penguins need a reason to fly? No. I'm pretty sure if they had a natural predator, they probably would have been evolved to fly. A lot of animals evolve themselves into their environments. They have to change themselves in their environments to better themselves. Animals grow, new features or however you may want to put it. Like chameleons can change colors because they had to learn how to adapt and hide from their predators. Snakes have new skin, and the list goes on. But, I look at butterflies as well. Like butterflies go through one of the biggest changes in the entire animal planet. They start as a caterpillar and they go from inchworming around, literally, to going into a cocoon and turning into a liquid and coming out of that one of the most beautiful creatures on the planet, turning into one that can now fly wherever they may be. So, butterflies are one of the biggest things. Like when I look at when I'm changing and trying And I try and resist that change, or my internal system trying to resist that change. Like in butterflies, they had to literally turn into a liquid to get to where they need to be. And I consistently hear, Isaiah Salter on grain of salt. He talks about your internal system is like your home's AC system. You could set it at 70, but whatever happens, it's always going to try and reset to 70. Whenever you try and change, things get hot, things get cold, it's always going to try and reset to 70. So your nervous system is always going to try and go back to what it knows. Not because, it may not want you to grow, but this is what it knows. Familiarity is always going to be the name of the game and where you feel like you should be. But oftentimes, familiarity is going to keep you stagnant. It's going to keep you where you are. It's not going to let you get to where you want to be. For me, I know a lot of familiarity, and things that I was doing, in the past year can't come into the new year with me. I've already made some of those changes, and I'm continuing to make a lot more of those changes. So just understand that change and familiarity, they kind of go hand in hand, but they're kind of opposites. You can't have change and then still want to be familiar and still doing all the things. You have to leave something in the dust. When rockets take off, they have to drop pieces to go higher. But we're not even going to dabble into the rocket. We'll see that for another episode. But things like that, change of familiarity, you have to go through. You have to sit back and look at for me, I struggle with looking at what I need to change. What am I familiar with that am I constantly holding on to? I struggle with that a lot. But oftentimes, my system, my program shows me you can't keep doing this. Especially at the rate you're doing it. You may be able to take it with you, but you can't take it with you at the level you're doing it. I can't journal once a month when I know I need to journal probably once a day. Like that's not gonna help me take me over the top. So a lot of those things, you kind of have to be in a constant fight when you're going through change. You have to be in a constant fight with your nervous system in the familiarity that it wants to keep. It wants to keep resetting to what it knows, but it has to learn something new to take you where you want to be. I know where I want to be. I have an idea of where I want to be, and I know a lot of the things that I'm continuing to do. My nervous system wants me to keep doing, but I know I can't keep doing to get to where I want to be. So, the name of the game this year is just change and learning who you're going to be, and just holding yourself accountable. It's a lot of goals I have. Like I said, I'm trying to post at least 200 days this year. Obviously I'm gonna go for stretches, and there might be days where I don't post. That's one. I'm going through ACL surgery. I hope Thanksgiving. That's literally 11 months out of post-op that I'm going on a turkey trot. Why? Because I believe that would be strong for me. In May I hope to go on a 10K. That's exactly 4.8 months out of my post-op. Am I supposed to? Obviously, if it's not what I'm supposed to do, I won't do it. But that's my goal. I can't wait to get back. I haven't been in the gym since December 5th. And I was going to the gym probably every day, except for off days. Some days I had an off day and I still went. I can't wait to get into the gym and see how my body changes. Especially nutrition. I have a feeling that I'm gonna get back into cooking. I don't know, how long that may take or when that may begin, but as a kid, I loved cooking. I wanted to go to culinary school. Honestly, I was probably some days away from going to culinary school, or some minor decisions of going to culinary school, but that's gonna work hand in hand with how my body's gonna grow over the next year. I don't have soccer to stop me. I don't, hopefully have another surgery to stop me. I'm just excited. Those are just three of the things that I really want to do, but I'm just really excited. I'm putting God at the forefront of it and learning how, God and psychology and your nervous system work one and one. That's what I'm very interested in, and that's what I truly believe in. I believe you do control your nature, but somebody is planning out those steps. But how does that work hand in hand? So just constantly researching. I just love learning new things. So I'm excited for this new journey. Honestly, be here with it. Whether you're journeying or you're just watching. This is just gonna be a journey. It's just a documentary of my own. It'll probably be a lot of podcasts on here, maybe a vlog here or there, but it's just me documenting my life. Something I can look back on. Sometimes you write in your journal, but are you going to read every one of those pages? No. I know I'm not reading every one of my journal pages. I skim till I find the part I want to read, or when I reread the night before New Year's. Like, I read, some months I skipped, some days I skipped to get to a point I want to be. But versus this, I could just turn this on my TV while I'm watching dinner or something. So I'm excited. This will be going up on January 1st, so the journey begins. We'll probably name this The Change Begins, and, just seeing where everything goes. I'm not really, focused on the view count or the subscriber count. I just want to build people who want to change as well, and, see how we can better ourselves, better each other. I believe human connection is one of the most valuable things on the planet. If it wasn't so important, why would, a lot of things be opportune? But, we'll go. I'm very excited. Everybody have a good pre-New Year. Chase your dreams. Change yourself.